migration policy. Zoe, good afternoon.
Hi there, Nihal.
It's good to have you on, Zoe, so thanks for joining us. Can you take us back again to the history of this? Why are we seeing consecutive governments struggle to do what they say they want to do?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the really big paradoxes about having a government that has decided to put itself in a situation where its flagship policy is something that's almost totally unachievable. I mean, stopping the boats is theoretically achievable, but stopping asylum seekers coming to the UK and seeking safety here is not achievable.
Sorry, is that the aim? Just for clarity there, sorry to interrupt you, Zoe, but is it about stopping entirely or making sure that those who wish to have asylum here seek the proper routes in order to do so?
But there are no proper routes. So it's therefore about stopping it entirely. I mean, okay, there are, but only for Ukrainians or for a very, very tiny number of Afghans. Other than that, there are no proper routes to reach the UK and in order to seek asylum. There is no visa to apply for, no other way to get here.
So a Syrian fleeing persecution in Syria manages to get on a plane and land at London Heathrow. What happens at that point when they come in and they say, I'm here, I want asylum because I've been persecuted in Syria? What happens?
Well, they wouldn't get that far is what happens, because if they didn't have a visa that entitled them to get on that plane, we have a system whereby basically the airline would be penalised financially, would have to pay a huge fine if they allowed them onto that flight without the visa to come here. And because we don't give out visas for people who need asylum or who need protection, then they wouldn't have a visa, the airline would not let them board the flight, and so they would never make it to the UK. If they were on UK soil, that's the point of that's the sort of double-edged sword of the asylum system. If you are on UK soil, under international law, and that's what's being disputed by the Tories under this whole saga that we're seeing them go through, you have the absolute right to say, you can't remove me, I'm a refugee, I need protection. And so then you have to have an assessment made of whether that's the case and whether you actually are entitled to protection and you actually have escaped from persecution. But in order to get here, there just simply aren't any ways, and that's why people take the boats. It's not for fun.
No, most certainly is not for fun. I recently met a young man who is an Iranian Christian who is here, and he's living in a hotel with his mother. And he obviously managed to get here. And he's neither Afghan or Ukrainian. So there must be some way of getting through.
So are you saying that you know he didn't come on a boat?
That's a very good question.
Because he might not have come on a boat. To be clear, only about half of the people who claimed asylum in the UK in the last couple of years entered via one of these small boats. There are other ways, but they are still not, they're not legally mandated ways. So there are still people who enter by stowing away in lorries and trucks, or try to attach themselves to trains in the Eurostar tracks. You know, there's deaths almost every month of people getting run over or electrocuted on the train tracks in Calais, attempting to make the crossing that way. It is also possible, if you have a lot more resources available, to get in touch with a broker who can get you a false passport, false documents, false visa for you to be able to enter the UK and then claim asylum that way. But there isn't a legal way. Yeah. So that Iranian Christian who's a convert and therefore understood as an apostate in Iran and subject to persecution, even death, he does not have any way legally mandated by the government to come here to seek our protection.
So when the government talks about illegal migration, it's being disingenuous, because in order for there to be illegal migration, there would have to be a legal way for asylum seekers to come in. But what you're saying is there isn't a legal way to come in.
Listen, if you make breathing illegal, then we're all criminals. And for people in circumstances like that Iranian Christian that you mentioned, migration is just as fundamental to life as breathing. And yes, the government can say that it's illegal, but it's fairly meaningless, as you say, because it's necessary for survival. It's not going to be stopped by being called illegal. And, even a year, 2 years ago, we never would have called an asylum seeker from Iran who was escaping that kind of persecution illegal. It would have been unthinkable. There would have been huge pushback to suggest such a thing. And the way that our conversation about these people has shifted to accept such a high level of demonization and implication of some kind of nefarious or criminality or anything like that is really horrifying, because I'm sure that man that you know, he's just an ordinary person who hasn't actually done us any harm. There's a few tens of thousands of people who come to the UK every year and ask for our help. It simply isn't true that that's a threat to us or a danger to us or in any way something that we can't handle. We can handle it. We totally could handle it. It would make a lot more sense for us to handle that humanely here in the UK than to try to set up a sort of proxy system on the other side of the world in Rwanda.